What's up, fight fans and YouTube family? We're back at it with another edition of Round 1 Sports Talk. Let's talk boxing. Naoya Inoue and Tapales fight. I recently got a lot of your comments. I want to answer on a couple of them, and I have a lot of interesting points in this video. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to want to watch the video in its entirety. Please like the videos, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Like always, let's get right into the video. So, Naoya Inoue is coming up on against a unification bout for all four belts on December 26th against Marlon Tapales. This fight is big on so many different levels, being that the fact that he will be the second fight. He could be the second fighter in history to unify all four belts at two separate weight divisions. Now, there have been speculations and said that Terrence Crawford was stripped by the IBF, and I'm going to get into that in this episode. I'm going to be discussing some of the belts, the standing A count. One of my subscribers, John, had a lot of questions. I've made videos on these questions he's already asked, but since he asked and you're a subscriber, I'm going to answer them. So let's break down everything one at a time. So leading into the Naoya Inoue fight, a lot of my subscribers commented on the fact that they don't see how Tapales is going to fare up against a highly skilled fighter such as the Japanese superstar, the Monster. Now, the reason why in this channel, if you're tuned into this channel and you've noticed, I give all the fighters their credit. Why? Tapales is a champion first and foremost, right? He deserves the respect, and whatever skills got him up to this point, you have to take that into the consideration into a fight. As well as, if I was just to come out as a fan, which I don't really see too many people ever right now giving the Japanese superstar a good fight, right? Now, if I was to come on and say that and not give Tapales any of his credit, the moment he beats him, you know what they're going to say? He beat a nobody. No, he beat a world champion. And we need to respect that and boost up both fighters so that when he does get this victory, he does get the credit that comes along with beating a world champion, unifying all four belts. I will not sit here and put Tapales down. I'm going to bring everything he brings to the table. You see? Because these fighters need to get their credits when they beat these champions. And that's how I view it. Okay. As far as the Japanese superstar, right? A lot of fight fans and a lot of sports analysts and stuff, they're not gonna really know how special he truly is until he retires. Unfortunately, like it happens to a lot of the greats and a lot of the legends. Until they retire, then you'll learn to appreciate them when they're gone from the sport, like a Tom Brady. He made it look so effortless at times, and it was just like you said to yourself, anyone can do what he's doing. But he had an understanding in that game of, how the game was played, and he mastered it. And then as soon as he exited, it's like, for me, football wasn't really like all that anymore. And it's going to happen the same way with the Japanese superstar, Naoya Inoue. Look, as far as it comes to his opposition and Stephen Kubo Fulton losing to him, Jason Maloney, fighters like that, Rodriguez, Stephen Kubo Fulton has nothing to hang his head down to. He lost arguably to the best fighter in our time right now. Forget about all the fighters that came and went. I'm talking about present day. He is arguably, in my opinion, he is the best. The way I'm judging him and categorizing him, on what level am I categorizing him in? I'm judging him on how boxing is supposed to look. The way the dance is supposed to go. Not a unique style. The way it's supposed to go. And his style caters to the boxing style. You see, he's not like a looping puncher. He's not. He just doesn't rely on his power. He can truly do it all. So when Stephen Kubo Fulton came up short against him, it took the best fighter of our time to beat him. Now that's saying a lot, because until he ran into that Japanese superstar, he was undefeated. He had 2 belts. Some fighters will you know, fall under fighting a fighter such as a Naoya Inoue, right? They'll just be like, man, if that guy's out there, why should I still be doing this? You know, they're, once they take a loss, it seems like they take another loss after that, another loss, or they get knocked out after that easier, and it becomes a mental thing. And some fighters, the good ones, rise and learn from this. Stephen Kubo Fulton, you know, it must have been tough being a world champion, right? Beating all your opposition, right? Being battle tested, right? Securing not 1 but 2 titles, right? And you're saying to yourself, I'm the best in the world, until you get in a ring with a guy like that. Then you see that there's levels to this. Now you're face to face with it. You just didn't hear about it. You just didn't watch it on TV or sit in the front row. He was right in front of you. And at that moment, you notice the difference in where you need to be at. Stephen Kubo Fulton can take that experience with him and become a better fighter because of it. You see? So it's like, this guy is doing so much in boxing right now. I mean, he's bringing eyes to a division that most people wouldn't even have been tuned into. They want to see what all the commotion's about and what is all this hype about. In the beginning, a lot of boxers came out and analysts came out and said he was a hype job due to the stigma of all the European fighters and Chinese fighters and Japanese fighters doing good over there. As soon as they cross the pond and come to America, they don't do so well. So they didn't even bother to check him out in the beginning of his career. Now everybody's tune has changed, because now they're like, wait a minute, this guy might be the real deal. And when they turned around and asked Stephen Kubo Fulton and they saw that performance firsthand, a lot of people started to take notice. You know, I truly believed in the beginning of his career he had the best disguise in all of boxing. Because when you looked at him, he was like, wow, this little skinny dude, yeah, I'll fight him, you know? And it wasn't until he started really making some headlines and some noise in the division where that he was moving up so effortlessly throughout the divisions. And I believe that once he moved to 118 and it was a bigger weight division, he was fighting bigger guys, and the way that he did it, he went and took on every champion one at a time. That's the most prestigious way that you can unify all the belts, rather than beating one guy that got 3 belts. You see? Now, let's use Naoya Inoue for an example as the belts. One of my subscribers have made a comment, and John, he had a lot of questions about the standing A count and the Donaire fight. And since we're talking about the Japanese superstar, let's right off of that. In that fight with the Donaire fight, the referee did halt the action and he jumped in. He did stop the Japanese superstar from finishing Donaire. Donaire did not technically take a knee. When you take a knee in the sport of boxing, the referee will give you a standing A count. It is put there in place so that boxers, if they need to and they can recognize it, a lot of boxers don't utilize it or forget to utilize it in the moment, because now you're dealing with a person that just took, you know, he just got his head rocked and his head spinning. He's not really thinking. Case in point, a boxer that utilized that to perfection and very beautiful was Jermell Charlo against Saul Canelo Alvarez just a few Saturday nights ago. Saul Canelo Alvarez had him up against the rope. He hit him. We all seen it. And Jermell Charlo took a knee. In fact, he utilized it so good, right? A less experienced fighter would have kept him up, and he probably would have got finished on those ropes. But he took the knee, took the standing A count, cleared his mind, and it allowed him to get out of the round and to the end of the fight, in fact, and he never got finished. And that was a prime way of utilizing the standing A count. But what the referee did inside of the Naoya inoue count was on the borderline of cheating. Okay, because you're not supposed to stop the guy from finishing the opponent if he didn't take the standing knee. It was up to him. The way that the referee can, recommend a standing A count on the fighter's behalf, if he was like up against the rope taking damage and then there was a halt to the action, he gives him a standing A count and he asks him, do you want to continue? You see? But now, like in every sport, sometimes somebody gets a little envelope full of money and it happens. Not every referee wants to put their career as a referee on the line to allow you to win a fight so that he's never put in position to hold another championship fight. No, not every referee is quick to do that. So don't think they're all cheating. Okay, but in boxing, the beautiful thing is that you can eliminate the referees and the judges out of the equation. Knock your opponent out. You'll take all that right away. So, look, as far as the belts go, we all know that the sanctioning bodies, they are four major sanctioning bodies, and they have the Ringside Magazine and the Literal Championship. Let's keep in mind what the Ringside Magazine actually is and the Literal is. They are actually trophies. They are trophies to honor a fighter in a certain point in their career. Throughout the years, the Ringside Magazine's title has changed and it's fluctuated. Its popularity has dropped, and the fact that some fighters take it as a respectable title and some fighters look at it as a joke, right? Because they're on the outside looking in, okay? This is what it was in the beginning. The Ringside Magazine was established to notify he was the people's champion, basically. Okay, it's when the number one guy back in the day in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, they were usually a white champion and they didn't want to fight the number one contender, which was in most cases, he was the black guy. Okay, so what they did was, the people actually couldn't take the belt away from the champion, but they honored the brother and said, yo, wear this belt proudly. We recognize you as the real champion and he's ducking you. Okay. Throughout the years, it became more of a popularity contest. They only give it to the fighters that are like more successful. If you got all 4 belts or 3 belts or something, or if your name is Lomachenko, it's like, it truly has. The difference between the belts that are sanctioned and the Ringside and Literal, you don't pay sanctioning fees on the Ringside Magazine. You can get money for representing it from them, yes, but you don't pay sanctioning fees to them. It's not really backed by anything. Okay? It's more for like honor. The Literal is a little bit stronger than the Ringside Magazine, of course, because of the heavyweight champions that held it. It made it, and amongst fighters, though, who has those belts, some fighters, like I said, it's to everybody's opinion. But if you want to know, does it count as a world title? No, it doesn't. No. When you walk into the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame only accepts world titles. They don't accept interim titles, and they don't accept Ringside Magazine or Literal. They will give you credit for it. They would, they'll say, these are your world titles. Have you ever gone to the Hall of Fame? They'll say, these are your world titles. And then on the bottom, it'll have all your interims with an asterisk on it. It's going to say interim world title. And for every belt, every organization has their own rules and how you move up in their ranking. It's a little complicated which belt I believe is the best boxing belt and which belt I think is the most, it's the worst boxing belt, but bougie. Okay, and we'll break it down right now real quick. Okay. In the boxing world, let's just come out and say it, the WBC is the most bougiest belt there is. That's like the Hilton, the 5-star hotel. Whoever has that belt, that is probably the best belt in all of boxing, but it is the worst belt to own. Yeah. If you're a boxer waiting in line to try to fight for a WBC title, good luck. You better know somebody. Unless you have a top promoter, You're signed with a top network. You have pay-per-view shit going on. Um, you really gotta like look. You gotta know people to get into the WBC. It's that bougie right now. It's really went a different way, I gotta fear to say, because you can't say if you're knocking people out, because if that was the case, then David Benavidez would have got a shot at Canelo Alvarez's belt 3 years ago, almost 4. Okay, and he's beating everybody. So even if you're knocking people out, good luck. You have to, it is a bougie ass fucking belt, bro. And they come up with their own rules and shit. And they show a lot of favoritism to fighters. But at the same time, it is one of the best belts to have. Okay? The WBC does a lot for community events, for fighters injuries. They do a lot of stuff, and I've looked them up, that they really don't like brag about. They don't come out, hey, we did this for this. No, they don't. They hold this event for the WBC. Yo, man, listen, every WBC champion, God rest their soul, if they're still alive, the Mike Tysons, the Sugar Ray Leonards, they're all there on stage, man. Oh, I would love to go to an event like that. WBC flips the bill for all of that. They do mad shit, right? Now, the best belt in all of boxing is the IBF for me. The IBF caters to all fighters. Okay, if you're going the IBF way, they like really take the rankings. Like the IBF is like, you beat him, you move up. You can really move up straight away to the IBF. The only thing with the IBF is that they're the strictest. They're the strictest of all the belts, man. You fuck around and you don't want to fight one of your mandatories, they'll strip you. They will strip you like this, the IBF, right? So it's always a custom. This has been a rule since the 3-belt era. Okay, this is just, it didn't happen in the 4-belt era. It's in the 3-belt era where if you had all 3 belts, and let's say today you have all 4 belts and you become like Devin Haney, you just get all 4 belts. The first thing you want to do is, when you're that kind of champion, is check in with the IBF and make sure whatever mandatory they have for you, take care of that one first. Because you only have one mandatory, one obligation a year for each belt. Okay? So the WBC is usually, paying attention to what they got going on. So they don't really harass you. So you got time with them. The WBO, we'll get right into them. They're a little strict too. And the WBA is a fucking shit show, right? So, we'll get into that. So, they're just by the book. That's what the IBF is. They're just by the book, but it pisses fighters off when, bro, I'm injured or I'm doing this, and they come and strip you from your freaking belt. They just stripped Terrence Crawford, and we'll get into that. So the IBF caters, though, to fighters. If you want to, get in position to fight a fight, to try to unify, they work with other, they will work with other sanctioning bodies, such as the WBO. Now, the WBO is a good title to hold, but they have a different ranking system. It's a little complicated, okay? And the WBO's structure, what happens is when you win the WBO, you get the WBO regular belt, okay? You get their regular belt first. Then you have to get title defenses. You have to fight, get a title defense, and then they promote you and they upgrade you to the Super WBO champion. You didn't fight for the Super WBO champion. You got promoted to it. You can get promoted to it. Now, if in the ranks, the WBO champion moves up, because there's a rule inside of the WBO which allows the fighter, if you're the WBO champion, you can challenge the existing champion south of the equator or north of the equator. If they fulfilled their obligation and they have no mandatory and you put in the paperwork, guess what? You become their mandatory. That's the same paperwork Naoya Inoue used against Stephen Kubo Fulton. He was the WBO champion at 118. He put in the paperwork to fight the WBO champion at 122, which forced Stephen Kubo Fulton to fight him. You see? But Stephen Kubo Fulton didn't wait to get forced. He said, yo, I accept it. So let's keep it funky. Stephen Kubo Fulton was like, you don't need to pay. I'll fight him. Let's go. And he took the fight. He didn't get pushed. No, you didn't have to push him. So anyway, now the WBA for me is just, man, what can you say about the WBA? Look, I don't want to shit on any of my world titles, but that organization has been around the longest. You would think that they would have their shit better together. I mean, the WBA has been criticized for so many different things. Their structure, the way that they organize their fights, they promote their fights, they promote all their interim champions as champions. It's very confusing for the public. When you hear words like regular, that's another way of saying an interim belt. The WBC has like the WBC Silver, the WBC Gold, the WBC Franchise. Those are other ways of saying interim champion. The way to find out the real, and the WBA thinks they're slick, right? Out of all the major sanctioning bodies, the way you can tell that which belt is the biggest, it has all the bells and whistles, right? Some of them, they take things off of it. Some diamonds, some pictures. The WBC takes some of the rings of all the surrounding flags because it just caters like to the national or the Pacific or what region you're fighting for, those small belts. But the WBA doesn't do that. The WBA makes all their belt exactly the same now. They're making their interim belt look exactly like the super belt. They're making their other interim belt look like the super belt. So it's very confusing. Like when Tank Davis comes out and he has the WBA, right? When he fought against Mario Barrios, right? You would look at that belt and you thought that that was the real world title. That wasn't a world title fight. So anyway, for me, the IBF is probably the best organization if you really want to go up. The WBO is one of the most flexible organizations. If you want a career, they will help you unify titles and they will work with you. The WBA is the toughest. They don't want to work with anybody. They just want you representing their belt and that's it. The WBC is the most bougie. They got probably the most money. You know, they throw in the most lavish parties and they're basically doing whatever the hell they want over there. Okay, but if you're fortunate enough to grab one of their belts, they will put you on a catapult. I mean, you know, it'll catapult your career. It definitely will. You know, so there's pros and cons to all the organizations, but I would like to remind you, like as always, boxing is a business disguised as a sport. You know, and this is a business, so you got to keep that in mind. But I always enjoy watching the best fighting the best, and Naoya Inoue is one of the best fighters I have seen in a very long time. So I just feel that Tapales has a lot that he's going to have to overcome, and I know this, but I'm going to give Tapales the credit that he deserves, and that's a champion's credit. You know, anything can happen in a fight. You know, I have Naoya Inoue in this fight, like always. I believe he's a special kind of fighter. He brings a lot to the table, and it's going to take a lot to beat him. But every man that fell victim to him has nothing to hold their hat off. Even Jason Maloney became champion in it after losing to the Japanese superstar. You see, so this fight, December 26th, I can't wait. That'll be my Christmas gift to myself. I'm going to watch this fight. I hope you guys tune in. And if you have any more questions about any boxers or anything you want to talk about, leave them in the comments below. I read all my comments. I address all of them myself. So, look, I hope you enjoyed this video. And like always, I'm on to the next one. Peace.